Hi everyone and welcome along. Today we are going to paint a lovely scene of a leaf canopy of trees overhead. No intro from my face this week just because we're filming on a slightly tight schedule and we want to make sure you get all the painting action. So you just got me, my hands, but I promise I will see you again next week. So I've got a rather large one wash brush. This is a Pro Art Connoisseur brush and I'm just getting a nice sort of sky blue colour in my palette. I'm using this brush to mix my colour as well just so I can get a huge amount of water into the palette here. I'm using Cobalt Blue Deep and French Ultramarine Blue, and I am going to use a very, very dilute amount of colour on the page, and I'm going to just place that on. So I've masked an area out on my page, just using washi tape, and we're doing quite an even coloured wash, and it's very pale because I just really want the bare minimum of colour. And I'm also now going to take my size 8 Pro Art Masterstroke brush, mix up a bit of cadmium yellow. I've purposefully sort of killing a bit of time whilst this just settles onto the page. And what I want here is to drop in a little bit of yellow, and I'm just going to drop it in just slightly off centre here. And I'm just going to dab it a few times, and that is just going to pulse the colour outwards whilst not overly mixing with the blue underneath to avoid a green murky colour. So let me tell you what we're doing today. We're going to do this lovely sort of branch canopy. When you look up when you're walking through a forest or just maybe down an avenue lined with trees, springtime is such an amazing time for the fresh bright green of the leaves really showing through, and it's no better when you look up and you see all those leaves almost sort of translucent with the sun shining through them, and then the contrast of the heavy dark brown of the branches. So what we're doing here is we're just creating our skyscape. So I've got my blue and I've got a glowing area here which is our sunshine, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some green. I should say greens plural actually, because what we always talk about on my channel anyway when we're talking about painting nature is there's no one green in nature, okay? There are so many different shades, there are so many different ways to mix a green colour, and if you're interested in that you can go right back to my Watercolour for Beginners playlist and see the really handy mixing chart video where I show you how you can mix all sorts of colours, green in particular, when you don't even have a green in your palette. So there you go. So I'm just using all the greeny blue tones I've got here. I've got Cobalt Turquoise, Hooker's Green, Sap Green and Green Gold just here. So that's a lovely mix of things. This is softening and blending beautifully as I talk, but we're just going to let it dry completely 100% and then we'll get back to our painting. This is dried now, so I'm now going to take a pencil because I think it's really helpful to just give yourself a bit of a guide, and I am going to draw some branches just at this point, just the sort of the main branches, like the larger branches that come off the tree, and then just a few smaller ones that will be a helpful sort of reminder of how branches go. And I'm going to have one coming in here. I think this is a really nice project to celebrate the change of the seasons, to encourage you to just look up and slow down a bit, maybe look up from work or from your phone and just celebrate nature really. So I think that branch will go there as well. just filling it in really. And now we're going to paint our leaves. So I've got a size 0 brush, and what I want to do is I want to fill this page with translucent leaf shapes, whether they are sort of a single colour out of my palette, or whether we paint in a few and then drop in more colour like this. So I've painted in some translucent and then drop in a little bit of colour. It doesn't really matter, I just want you to have fun with it. The only sort of rule really is that we want them to be spaced so they're not overlapping with each other at this point. And you can also go further off from your branches, so I'm just painting some that are sort of floating in the air here that will be able to join them up with some other branches that we can paint in. So yeah, this is a lovely mindful practice really. Your leaves are just little blobs, and have fun. So that in itself is something to really enjoy, just filling up the page with leaves of all different shapes and sizes. The main aim with that is that they're all not overlapping, spaced out, and there's a nice general coverage. Now what I'm going to do is the areas that have dried, I've sort of painted down here, so that's a little bit wet still. I'm now going to go back in and paint a few more layers of leaves, but sort of focusing more around the edges. So I'm just going to mix up some more colour, keeping it dilute, still nice and dilute, and some brushes you'll find will just do a leaf shape in one go, which is quite cool. And although it might feel, oh gosh, I'm mucking up my lovely leaves, these leaves will also dry into a lovely, crisp, translucent formation. And we're just wanting to create a sense that these sort of the edges of this painting is where there's a much fuller branch of thicker leaves, and then they start to thin out as they come into the center of the piece. So only do this when your first layer of leaves has dried, and just in and around the edges. This is all dried now, and it's time to put in the branches. So I'm mixing up a concentrated shadow mix. It's very, very dark, and it's really important that it's nice and concentrated, because the whole point is it's going to cut across this really lovely translucent canopy. So how we're going to begin is we're going to use the pencil lines to be the initial guide for the branches, and I am purposefully sort of wobbling the brush a bit. I'm using a size 0 brush. I'm not going to be going into the thinner branches yet. I want to focus first on using the brush for the thicker branches, and then we will be using a smaller brush. And at times I'm just going to pick up a bit more sort of Payne's grey just to really darken down. There we go. It's funny, every seasonal change, I and my mum, we both have a habit of saying, this is my favourite season, this has to be my favourite season of whichever one is incoming, and I say it every single time, and Aunt laughs at me because I'm like, oh, I just love spring. I think spring's my favourite, but I do have a really vivid memory of driving to school with my mum and us just all looking at all the leaves on the trees in spring, and saying, yeah, this is the best season. So now I'm using my 4/10 brush to just draw in the nice thin lines, and it's not going to be every single leaf we see, but the ones that you can sort of visualize easily and picture them on the branch, then go for it. But the whole point of this is that we can paint in the ones that we see, but there are going to be some that aren't going to be quite so obvious of where they come from, and that's fine, because it just helps create that sense of the canopy of leaves, and they're just more than we can even comprehend. But you really want to make sure you've got a nice thin brush for this bit. So I'm just looking for the last little bits. I mean, we probably all see leaves that need joining up, but also sometimes it's nice to just sort of leave them as they are. I think that's pretty good. So we can peel off, oh, how satisfying is that? Peel off the tape, and it leaves us with a lovely crisp edge. And this is a lovely piece to celebrate spring and remind you to look up and enjoy nature's glory. Thanks so much for watching. I want to say a big thank you to my patrons for their support. This was actually a subject matter that they requested. I don't know if you know, but you can ask for YouTube tutorial content when you are a patron of mine. And I also want to say a huge thank you to you all for watching. You can like and comment below, and of course, if you never want to miss another video, just hit the subscribe and that little notification bell and you'll never miss us. Okay, until next time, bye!